Morning. My name is Johan. Welcome to the Crossrail Ground Mount webinar. See people signing on and getting situated. We have also Dakota on. She is our organizer here and just making sure things are operating properly. Dakota, you can let me know if you hear me or not. I know last time I did one of these, I was muted and talking for a minute, and that was slightly embarrassing. All right, cool. So closing my windows here so you guys don't have any background noise, and I can try to do this webcam thing if you want. Again, everybody's in listen only mode, so everybody's muted. If you have questions, you can type it in there into the questions box, and we will review questions there. And we'll do a Q&A at the end. So you can see my COVID shelter in place shaggy hair here. I just wanted to say hello. My computer's a little low there, but so I am we're still in shelter in place in California. So I am here in my home in Berkeley, and then we have Brett Nielsen, who's also going to be presenting on the ground mount system. I'm going to do a little bit of an intro. My slides are just delayed here, so let me make sure it's going. Again, if you guys have questions, please do type them in, and everybody that's connected, if you haven't done one of these webinars before, it's basically based on your Wi-Fi. So if you're having trouble connecting, check your Wi-Fi, close your windows and your browsers. It will help a lot. I might turn off the camera here in a minute just because it takes a lot of bandwidth and it might delay the things, but I think it's good to see your presenter. So I am the Senior Director of Product Marketing for Everest, and we're doing a lot more of these webinars going over systems. And again, my name is Johan Alfson. I've been in the industry almost 15 years now, working mostly on technical training, product development, and marketing. And I mentioned Brett Nielsen. He's our Director of Business Development. He has much more experience on the ground mount system. He's helped installers get started with it, transition over to it, collect product feedback, and we're obviously consistently making product improvements. And there's actually some big improvements coming for this product specifically in the next couple months. So, and Brett will talk about that, what we're working on, as well as what's available right now. I mentioned Dakota. She's our marketing manager. She makes all the wheels turn nicely in this organization, and she's going to make sure we're good to go on the technical side with the webinar in general. So if you have questions on that front, you can always type that in too, and she can try to answer the questions. And Tyler Wiggins is our product development manager, and he's head of our engineering department, and he's doing a lot of great work on all of our products. He's on here in the background in case some technical questions come up that are a little bit more on the engineering side. He can try to support some of those questions, and he can type some of those in, and we'll do a Q&A again at the end. So again, we got introductions and logistics out of the way. We are going to do a brief overview of Everest in general if you're new to our product line. We have a lot of new stuff, so I just wanted to go over the Crossrail system in general and some of the new products that are coming out here in the next month. And then we'll get into our Crossrail ground mount system, and Brett will take over there, and he'll talk about components and features. We'll get into some of the engineering, design, installation, and some of the future improvements, as I mentioned. And again, Q&A at the end, so feel free to either write down your questions or type them in, and we'll go over it. So if you're new to the Everest side of things and you're curious about Everest, we actually are a German-based company, but we have our main office in the U.S. is in San Diego. It's in North County in Vista, California. A lot of us are located in different areas. Brett and Dakota are actually in Arizona. I myself am in Berkeley, California, and Tyler's in the headquarters area in San Diego. So K2 is our parent company, and that started in Germany. a long time ago, and they have a lot of experience and opened up a lot of offices all over the U.S. Or sorry, all over the world. And it started in Europe. Obviously, you can see it's sprouted out into many locations in Europe, and in the Americas, we're known as Everest, and K2 actually. So, and in Mexico as well, we have an office in Guadalajara. So, a lot of different locations, which is great because it allows us to actually have some diversity with our products and roof types, and we have installs all over the world. So we have a lot of experience on the engineering side and product development, and we meet with all the offices weekly actually to talk about products and what each office is working on. And it's really cool to see because we can pull those things into our markets as needed into the US and co-develop products. Our Everest outside sales team is growing. We've got Nick Pack in the Northwest. Brad just joined not too long ago, just end of last year in the Midwest. Mark just joined us. He's our newest member on the outside sales team. You might recognize him from the industry. He's been in for a while. He might even be on this call. I'm probably laughing, so I'm pointing him out. He's in the South, in the Texas area. Al Harsh is our East Coast sales manager, and he's been with us probably the longest out of this team, and Ulysses as well has been with us for quite a while, and he's based in Utah in his hometown now, just moved back. And I like to show our whole team just because these are the folks you're dealing with when you're calling in and you're getting information on products. Our inside sales team is very helpful. Some of you might recognize the name Ryan Estrada, and Manny as well. Nancy, Alejandra manages our inside sales team, and Luce just joined us as well from the Guadalajara team. Very talented folks, and they understand the products very well and can help you with like our design tool. If you have questions on the design tool for any of our systems, you can contact our inside sales team and outside sales team based on your region. So all of that information is on our website. But getting into products, so we have racking and mounting for all different system types, roof types. I myself am more familiar on the residential side, getting more familiar with commercial, but we'll just go over just some of the new products we have coming next month. So some of you might be familiar with the Crossrail family. This does pertain to the ground mount system, which we're going to be dealing with Crossrail 80. The number of that's associated with the rail is actually the size, so in millimeters. So we're a European-based company, and that number is associated with the height of the rail. So we have the 48X, 48XL, and 80. And now we are just introducing 44X, which is basically an optimized version that takes the benefits of 48X and XL and is optimizing the rail profile to be lighter weight, but still strong enough to be installed all over the US. So it's a really nice system that's going to be a lot easier to handle, and it brings the cost down while maintaining the engineering quality of our 48 and Crossrail X and XL Crossrail family. So if you're wondering about that product, you can go to our website. I'll link some information here, but like I said, it's an optimized system, and we are designing all of our new systems to meet 716, which some of you might be seeing. And you'd be surprised how strong this system is. You could still do your standard 4 and 6 foot spans in whatever regions you're in. Obviously, snow and wind are going to have some changes, not on our system from 48X, but basically you'll be able to do some of the same engineering spans and mounting, and you can see this once we start uploading all this onto our design tool. You can do kind of a comparison, and that's the benefit of our design tools. You can go on there and see which system works best for you. And so we're going to start integrating this into our tool in the next couple months as you see it hitting shelves. July, maybe a couple months out, depends on the distributors. In July, it's ready to order, but distributors obviously need to work through existing stock and get the systems on the shelf. So what's changing with this system? One of the biggest things, we're still going to offer all of our rail profiles. 44 is a new addition to the system, but we're also moving to a single tool system. So if you use our racking now, you probably are familiar with the Allen In fact, I have all these little tools here. I have like a little training setup. You can't see behind me that you're going to start seeing some videos that we'll be doing these homeschool edition of some of our presentations. Some of you guys might be familiar with our Allen tools that I've used for our mids and ends. Now we're going to be switching that to a 13 millimeter socket. So I know some of you guys are saying, why not a 1/2 inch? Because most 5/16 lag bolts are used for most roof penetrations and hardware. The 13 millimeter we decided to go with because we always get a mix of different parts with millimeter from Europe, and the 13 millimeter actually works on a 5/16 head 1/2 inch, no problem. So it kind of covers all bases. So if you are using 5/16 lag screws into the roof, like comp mounts, for example, you can still use the 13 millimeter, and it allows you to install all the systems. So our new Yeti clamp, our new ground mount, our ground lug, our comp XP mount, all of the hardware on the Crossrail system is going to now be a hex head, as you can see there, and you can use a 13 millimeter socket on the full system. The other thing that's improving with our clamps, and this does pertain to our mid clamps that you're going to be using on the ground mount system with our Crossrail 80 system, is the excuse me, the new mid clamp is going to, and I'm going to grab one here and show the difference. If you could still see my screen. So this is our existing mid clamp, and you could see it was just a standard bolt. It has the Allen there. Now, if you look at the image there, what we're doing now is we're adding a hex head to make it single tool there, and also adding this cylinder here that allows to receive the bolt. And now you have much more real estate in the rail for wire management. So you'll see that change coming with this new platform with single tool that we're introducing in July. It will be available. And if we have any distributor reps on the line, excuse me, you can distinguish between the part numbers. It's the same part number, but with an H at the end. So you'll see a -H for hex, and that will be introduced and available in the next month. So that still uses the MK3, which bites into the rail. It's the way it installs into the rail, which gives a lot more rail engagement and securement for the modules. So you'll start seeing that in the next month or so. So if you're interested in that, just let us know. And again, allow the distributors to work through their inventory. It's not going to be an overnight change, but they are moving fast on bringing that product in. And again, if you have questions, you can go ahead and go to our website, and I'll link to that in the next slide here. The next product is our T-Foot X, and I believe I have, oh yeah, I do have one. And again, I'm going to do a whole overview of this product, all the new products. I'm going to do a webinar in the next month or two. We're introducing that as well. We did one last month. We'll do another one to show all these products in more detail. But the T-Foot X, this is a great product for flat roofs, low slope roofs, where you can attach 2 lag bolts or lag screws, into the roof, and then you can install the racking or tilt system. This has got a lot of different functions, and it's serrated on one side and not serrated on the other side. Some people prefer it, don't prefer it, so you got the option. It comes with the T-bolt set hardware, so you can attach any Crossrail to that T-Foot X system. So that's also coming next month. Again, new product documents are all coming online. So if you're interested in that, you can go to our website. There is a whole page on our website. If you click on the single tool system, it's actually scrolling in our header online. So you can find that information right on the website if you have more questions. So the Crossrail is a pretty diverse product. It's the same components for the entire system. So whether you're using 80 for the ground mount, which we're going to talk about here in a second, or you are using 48X or XL, or you start using 44, it's all the same components that bite into the rail, the mid clamps, end clamps, the ground lugs, the optimizer mounting kits. Everything is going to be the same for the system, and you can use it in different functions. So you can use it as a regular dual rail, like you see there. Some people are getting more familiar with our shared rail system. We did a webinar on that last month, talking about the comparisons of the two. You're going to see some videos coming out pretty soon talking about that. So definitely check our website if you're interested in this. I don't want to bore you to death with this, but there's many different orientations where you're doing dual rail, 2 rails per row of modules, which is pretty standard, or you're doing shared rail, or you're going to introduce a skirt, or you want to do what we call a tuck system, which is kind of a hybrid of shared and dual rail, which in my opinion looks the best. You can see on the far right there. And then we have the Crossrail tilt-up system. Obviously, our ground mount uses all the same components and is a part of the Crossrail family, and we'll talk about that. And I'm going to hand it over to Brett here in a couple slides. But just to reiterate the different applications for flat roofs, Brett was just on a job with guys trying out our tilt-up system. This is a really cool system because it uses the rail as the tilt back leg. So the only components that you need to make this a tilt-up system is the climber set, which you see at the bottom left there, which marries the rail to the legs, which is the rail as well, and the tilt-up connector set, which makes it a tilt-up system and uses that extra rail to the back leg. So everything else, all the components and clamps are the same as the regular Crossrail family as a standard. Another unique system that is with our product line and not necessarily the Crossrail, it's its own unique system. It does have the same profile, so you can still use the same components and mids and ends and optimizer or microinverter mounting kits. It all works the same with this Mini Rail Express system. So this is a unique system where it actually eliminates the long extrusions and you mount to the top of a trapezoidal roof. If you're interested in that, we did just do a webinar on metal roofs and we introduced all our products. A lot of people didn't know we have our own standing seam clamp, but we introduced that in our metal roof webinar. And we also have other webinars on the D-Dome railless system. So this is an east-west system. Again, this is just another product offering we have out there if you're interested in that, or any of our products that I've mentioned here, like our roof attachments for different roof types. A lot of people don't know we have many different tile hooks. We have a couple different comp mounts, and we have our standing seam power clamp as well. All of this is available on our website, so be sure to check it. But now we'll just transition. I'll give it over to Brett. I just want to give you guys a little overview of what the products we have, and we are breaking up webinars into system types. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, keep checking our website, sign up for our email list, and we'll send updates on these product offerings. And we're doing a lot more videos as you guys are doing. A lot of folks are still, different states and cities are not as open. California's been pretty strict, so I have not been traveling, and we are doing more and more videos on our website. So I'm going to hand it over to Brett so he can take over and show you the ground mount system. And I'll go ahead and
Johan,
turn off. Yeah.
Can you hear
me? Yep.
Why don't you hold on to it? I was having trouble downloading the most recent version of our deck. So I'll just kind of talk through the slides as you share your screen on this, which will make the most sense. So
I'll make myself presenter again, and you can see. You want me to go through the slides and keep it on here?
Yeah, that'll be perfect.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, thank you everybody for on our ground mount tutorial. Basically, I think a lot of people out there that use our products or are interested in our product don't necessarily know that we have a ground mount. And so the purpose of walking you guys through our ground mount product line is to just simply show everybody who pretty familiar with ground mount, have done it before, maybe with a competitor product, some of the advantages that our system offers. And then for some of the really new people who you maybe historically just done rooftop or commercial, and they're kind of getting into some ground mounts, what we have to offer, and a brief, quick, step-by-step tutorial on how to do a ground mount system. So to start, this ground mount system is no, I wouldn't call this like a commercial or anywhere near a utility scale ground mount product, right? So this is a typical residential scale ground mount. It's great for anything from 4 to 25, 30 kilowatts. Once you get larger scale than that, I think that there's some really good options out there that will probably streamline the process, be a little more cost effective, and some of the additional like engineering costs that are associated with ground mount start to be absorbed at that scale. So this is definitely for a homeowner or a customer that maybe has cedar shake shingles, doesn't have the greatest orientation, might have a lot of tree shade on the house, and they still want to do solar, and you guys are currently using Everest maybe, or want to use Everest, and would like to utilize the components that you already use on your day-to-day rooftop jobs. So the product lines, real quickly, there's a lot of crossover, as Johan was mentioning. There is a lot of crossover with our other products. So the mid clamps, end clamps, the optimizer, microinverter mounts, and our Crossrail 80 all work with this system. To find more information on and get the downloads for our engineering reports and our assembly guides, you go to everest-solarsystems.com, and in the upper left-hand corner, there's a menu bar with the 3 lines. You click that, and it'll be a drop-down menu. You click on products, and then just click on Everest Ground Mount. And then from there, if you scroll to the bottom of the page, there'll be a few different tabs. There'll be a video tab, there'll be project tab, and there'll be a download tab, and that download tab has all the information you really need. So it has the assembly guide, it has all of our engineering letters, and it has our engineering report and spec sheets, everything you'd need to get your design, get the engineering documentation to provide to the AHJ, as Johan's shown on this page. So once you click on that menu bar, go to ground mount, and then go to the bottom, click the download tab, and you'll see all that. And that applies for all of our products. So some people do call us and they have a hard time finding some of our documentation. That's the fastest, easiest way to find what you're looking for. So real briefly, we'll just go through the components needed to install a ground mount system. Obviously, you'll want to have your impact driver on site, 13 millimeter deep impact socket for all of the top mounting hardware. The Hollander set screw is a 3/16 inch drive Allen key as well, which we'll update on our assembly guide. You obviously need some excavation equipment, at a minimum, obviously a shovel, a wrench, torque bar, string line, and your tape measure as well. On that slide, which is also in the assembly guide, we have our torque values for the main components as well. Go to the next slide. So the main components of our system, the main rail profile that we utilize, it's our heaviest duty rail profile, is our Crossrail 80 product. You don't need all of these components to do a ground mount system because we have some redundancy here. We have a number of different mid and end clamp options for you guys to choose from. On the left-hand side going down, we have our new 13 millimeter standoff mid clamp, which is universal from 30 to 47 millimeters. It has a post in the middle of the mid clamp that prevents the bolt from dropping in, which allows you to lay more of your wire into our rail, which is one of our best features of our product line. Our universal end clamps as well. Everest pipe L bracket, which connects our rail to your Schedule 40, Schedule 80, 1.5 or 2 inch pipe. Our JF3 screws from EDOT that connect our elbow joints. And then everything in terms of building the structure of the ground mount below our racking, we partner with Hollander. We currently don't make these items in-house. They're pretty easily accessible, off-the-shelf, galvanized steel brackets that doesn't really make sense for us to buy, resell, and kind of complicate the supply chain and increase the cost to you guys. So basically, we just take all of these Hollander fittings, we provide the engineering documentation and the design guide, and you guys can source these either from your local distributor. Sometimes you can buy them directly from Hollander, and a lot of these components you can even get directly off of Amazon.com in a lot of ways. So moving along, we have our Yeti hidden end clamp. We also have aluminum end clamp, so some redundancy in the parts of the system. And then we have our wire management and our end cap components on this as well. And I'll go through all this in the steps of the installation. Keep going.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to
go ahead,
chat about the components. Did you want to talk about the components here, or you want me to skip over to the installation process here?
Oh no, we're gonna go. We'll go into the components. Okay. So if you back up a slide. So as we were talking about before, as Johan was mentioning, we just recently came out and launched a new line of new components that are standardizing our system to a one tool system. If you're using like a 1/2 inch lag on a roof, our system is 13 millimeter. It's metric. It's a standard hardware sizes that you can get off the shelf, even from like a Home Depot if you lose anything. The best feature of our products, we're a German-based company, as Johan was mentioning, and we've tried to maintain that as a core value of what we do. We want to make things as easy to install and bring a very high level of quality where things are reproducible. It's hard to make mistakes, and at the core of that is the MK3, which is our slot nut with our plastic tabs that help you engage in the rails. So if you compare like our mid and our end clamps to a lot of the other products in the market, there's a substantial amount of metal engagement between the rail and the bottom of the MK3. These components are pre-assembled, so we're looking at the cross section of that mid clamp. It's got the 13 millimeter bolt on the top. The spring is pre-assembled. The standoff is pre-assembled, and the MK3. The whole system is pre-assembled. So you basically just pull back the tabs, you align it parallel to the rail, and then you make a quarter turn to the right and lock it in place, quarter turn to the left takes it out. And so there's quite a bit of rail engagement between the slot nut and the rail. And so we believe that this is a really reliable way to install your clamps. It's easy to do. When you're actually assembling the ground mount, it's kind of nice to not have to hold on to your clamps while you're standing on like 3 toes on an A-frame ladder, 6 or 7 feet off the ground. You can even put these clamps in the rail and Crossrail 80 before you mount the rails to the structure, and it just makes the installation part of it a lot easier. That MK3 technology is also used in our microinverter mounts as well as our ground lugs, and these all now have a 13 millimeter socket size. Go next. Johan, can you go to the next slide?
Yeah, is it the Yeti clamp? I think it's just delayed.
So we just want to show you one of our newest products. Yep, I think it is delayed. Yeah. So the Yeti hidden end clamp also uses the 13 millimeter. This mounts underneath the module frame and grabs onto the return lip of the module. This can definitely be used on the ground mount system. At the bottom of this clamp is an extruded piece that you can pull a zip tie through and get control of it. It allows you to cut the rail totally flush to the bottom of the module. And I recently had a customer that was using a little bit of a wider module. It was a Panasonic module. They're a little bit wider, and it was a little longer than the rail profile. And by using the Yetis, the hidden end clamps, we were able to still get the customer to get through the project without having to switch out rails or anything like that. So provides a nice clean look and easy to install, and uses that same 13 millimeter tool. And you can use this on the ground mount as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if aesthetics is a big thing for people. I think this is, we still have our standard end clamps if you want to, just keep it simple. But the Yeti clamp is actually a pretty nice system if you want to keep the rails flush. And just to show you what Brett was talking about, you just kind of fish it in there. You can actually put that in, turn, lay down the module, you mark it, lift the module, cut it, bring this over, and then clamp it down onto the module frame. And it doesn't have the risk of over tightening onto the glass. So it's a nice little product.
For grounding options, we have our Everest grounding lug. It's a new grounding lug that we just launched. Uses that same MK3 slot nut on the bottom. It comes pre-assembled. And with this product, it's one part number. So some of you that are out there that have used our product in the past realize that we had like a T-bolt hardware kit as well as the 10.3 grounding lug. And so we now have both of these options. It should be a little more cost effective, and it does allow you to ground your wires on top of the rail, which on a pitched roof is kind of nice. You don't have to bend your copper around and down the side of the rail. Everything can be mounted right on the top underneath your array. And so this is also usable on the ground mount system.
Yeah, and Brett was mentioning the MK3, just to show you guys. We do a little video showing how these go in. This is for our mids and our ends, and you just turn it, and it slides in, and this allows you to tighten it down. Now the new one's going to come with a hex head on there, and it's built in, designed for specifically for the Everest Crossrail system. So this is a nice new product that you'll see coming out. It's actually on the shelf now.
So for wire management, one of the newer components that we're offering is our TC wire clip. So it snaps onto the top of the rail. So now, in addition to the new mid clamp that prevents the bolt from dropping, a lot of our customers, the feedback was that it's great that you have basically a wire way with your rail, but your universal mid clamps with the bolt going through, we're concerned that it might pinch a wire. And so that was the genesis of us coming out with the new mid clamp that would maintain one part number, right? So in general, you'll have your Yeti hidden end clamp, that's one part number. You don't need dark or mill because it's underneath the module. And then you would have your mid clamp, which you could do, mill or dark. Most customers are using dark. Maybe on a ground mount, you might use a silver framed module. So in addition to that, more of our customers are going to be using the rail as the wire way. And we've been asked by a lot of customers to develop something that they can snap onto the rail. So it's a lot more reliable long-term than a zip tie. It's really easy to put on. You just snap it, you kind of cam it on and then snap it in, and that'll keep wires in place. We also have the Omega clip if you want to snap in like your M4 connectors on the side, as well as the Hay clip, the Sun Runner that goes on. I personally really like the Sun Runner for side mounting. It goes on the rail, it really doesn't pop off, and it can hold more than one wire. You can do a home run wire in that as well. Okay, so let's get into ground mount. So if you've never done it before, you basically, your salesperson is out there, they sold a ground mount at some price, right? So now what do you do? So if you'd like to use our ground mount, the basic process for finding out the components, the amount of pipe, everything you need is if you go to our website, there's a tab for there's an project intake form. You just go on, you can fill it out, you put in the information of your ground mount, the module type, the location, wind speeds, and then one of our tech support people will evaluate that, and they'll use an internal estimator that will put in those parameters and provide you with a parts list that you can go get pricing from our distributors and some of the other suppliers on the pipe and the Hollander fittings. So typically, ground mount, the requirements from an AHJ vary a lot from one town and one city and one state to the next, right? So you'll probably end up falling into one of three categories when it comes to the AHJ's approval and requirements and guidelines on what you have to do. Because basically, we're working with everything below ground. So what does that mean? For us as a racking company, we're doing the calculations and we're finding out, what the max load capacity is in snow and wind combinations, but what's going on below ground has a lot to do with that. So we do have pre-stamped state letters on our ground mount. And there will be certain AHJs where you call them up and you say, hey, I have a 30 panel ground mount. It's in this area. You provide basic requirements. The first thing you want to do is really call the AHJ and say, what are your requirements for ground mounts? Because they're so different. There are AHJs, there are permitting jurisdictions that will accept a state stamped letter because they may have very similar soil conditions in that area, or they're just sort of maybe a little ignorant to the details. If that's the case, that's actually great. But what I would recommend if you plan to do a decent amount of ground mounts is get, a local engineering firm that's familiar with doing ground mount engineered stamps, on speed dials, so you can utilize their services. I know Vector Engineering is one that comes to mind. There's a lot of them that you can contact. So, if you follow the steps, talk to the AHJ, hey, will you accept a state stamped letter with the calcs from Everest Solar? If the answer is yes, great. Move on to, designing the system, getting your parts lists, and start ordering product and submit your permit pack like you normally would, and just include the assembly guide spec sheets and the engineering letters that we provide. If the answer is no, then you need to find out what you need. And at that point, it's probably best to just reach out to an engineer who can do all that for you, right? So depending upon the soil type, the soil conditions, if it's a flood zone, these are pretty common issues that come up. The AHJ will want to look at it and confirm that your attachment method into the ground is going to work and it's going to last. The biggest concern that a lot of AHJs have, at least outside of like LA County, is are you installing this potentially in a flood zone? So I live in Arizona, and there's a lot of wash out here, and there's a lot of places where with high with heavy rains does flood out. And so that's one of the major issues for a lot of places in the Southwest. For sure, LA County has a lot of very specific requirements, and they'll likely require at a minimum just a wet stamp from an engineer that is going to be, you know, the engineer of record for the project. In some really difficult jurisdictions, they'll ask for additional information. You know, it'll be made in some cases more than just, you know, looking at the a soils map. They may even ask for a soil study, a geotech study with core samples and whatnot. Typically, that's not the case for residential, but sometimes it is. So from that standpoint, if you have any questions, if you don't have an engineer that is familiar with that, reach out to us. We do have engineers that you can reach out to, as well as just reaching out to our tech support team on that. Next. So this is the project intake form. It's you click on those same 3-line menu bar on our homepage. Scroll down to your project, and there'll be a link for our intake form. Put all your project information into that, and we'll reach back out to you with some more questions and be able to give you an estimate on the number of pipe and components that you'll need that you can bring to a distributor. Next.
Yeah, and this is super helpful. So if you guys have a system, or a job that you want to use this system for, and you want some support from one of our inside sales team members, just fill out this information, and the more detail, the better. Obviously, you don't have everything, but if you have details on the project, this is a really helpful form for our team to get everything they need and then help you out and get started and whatnot.
Okay, so we do have an internal estimator, right? So if you're going to be doing a lot of ground mounts, or more than a few in a month, or maybe you're doing once a month, then it's going to be a little time consuming, right, for you guys to fill out the estimator form and send it back and go back and forth. So we do share this. It's just a formulated Excel spreadsheet that you put in your wind conditions, you choose a Schedule 40 or the Schedule 80 pipe, and then you choose some of the other options like V-bracing and whatnot, and it will spit out the complete parts list that you need. It'll be all the top racking components, the rail, the clamps, the pipe bracket, and then on the secondary page, it'll actually provide the pipe estimator. So it'll summarize how much pipe you need for the front legs, for the back legs, and then the horizontal bracing as well. It rounds that up to 10-foot lengths that are pretty easy to procure from your local pipe company. And then you're off, at that point. So what we would do is, typically, if you're going to be doing a lot of ground mounts, just let us know. We'll basically have a quick little training on how to use the tool that we have, and then we'll just send it to you so you can use it on your own, so you don't constantly have to be filling out request forms and sending them in. Okay, so the biggest thing that you're going to want to know on our ground mount is, what are the spans? So with our ground mount system, we have basically 3-4 different options. We standardize on a 1.5-inch Schedule 40 or Schedule 80 pipe, a 2-inch Schedule 40 or Schedule 80 pipe, and then we have those options with V-bracing or without V-bracing. So we're currently in the process of adding some pretty great features and new accessories and new options to the ground mount platform. We're currently working on getting a 3-inch system developed that will go, even more rows in landscape high. So this is a standard 4 modules in landscape high, 1.5 or 2-inch pipe ground mount. As you can see here, this is the span chart that we have. This specific chart is for California. We've done something a little special here. We reached out to an engineering firm. A lot of customers we talk to like to do 3-inch pipe because there's less cross bracing and you still get pretty substantial spans with the 3-inch pipe. But the 3-inch pipe is pretty expensive. It's not cheap. So what we did is we got a special engineering on our 1.5-inch pipe option on a standard 20-degree tilt ground mount, and the wind loads in here are set at 85, but that's the 716 code, so don't be scared by that. This applies to California, your typical, what you might think of as 115 mile per hour winds. And this is with the 1.5-inch pipe, and we're getting up, basically we're maxing out at 17-foot spacing. And that's pretty substantial. Now with that, there is V bracing. So there's some additional Hollander fittings you need to buy and some additional pipe to that. And I later on in the slides, I've tried to give you just an idea of what it is. So for those customers of you that are like, I'll only do a 3-inch pipe ground mount because it has less attachments, we're actually matching a lot of our competitors' 3-inch pipe footers count with our 1.5-inch pipe and these V braces. So that's great because there's a much lower cost in the 1.5-inch pipe versus the 3-inch, and I kind of break that down for you. But basically, at this point, let's say your AHJ says, "Yeah, you're great. You know, just we'll accept the state stamp letter from the manufacturer." Then you would move on to our engineering report and use this as your guide for the horizontal or east to west spans that would dictate how many holes you have to put in the ground at this point. So moving on. This also has all the other spans for different tilts and different size pipe with and without the V bracing as well. And so this kind of, and again, this is super rough, but I wanted to be able to share with you guys just some idea of the cost difference in doing 3-inch versus 2-inch versus 1.5-inch. Now, with that said, we do have the V bracing, which are at the 90-degree angles of your vertical pipe and your horizontal pipe. And we also have a diagonal brace that attaches the front row and the back row. But with that said, I've estimated some costs on the 1.5, 2-inch, and 3-inch pipe in the upper left, and that's cost per 10 feet. So it's obviously a lot less with the 1.5. If we compare Everest 1.5, Everest 2-inch with a competitor 2-inch and competitor 3-inch, it shows you how many posts. We actually have the same number of posts on our 1.5-inch as a lot of the other products have on their 3-inch pipe. The pipe cost is a lot more for the 3-inch on a per stick basis, but we do have some additional pipe costs with the 1.5-inch. So I just wanted to, for those of you that want to be consistent, use our ground mount because you use our roof mount system. You want to use the clamps and take advantage of the features of the product, like the enhanced wire management, like clamps being easier to install. Our 1.5-inch pipe option is great, and it actually matches pretty well with our competition. I used all list pricing, so this cost per watt is like really high. It's pretty far off from what you guys probably would actually pay, but I just wanted to provide somewhat of a comparison. I think the real difference, you're looking on the right, the real comparison is, you know, the 1.5, the 2-inch comes across looking a little lower than the 1.5-inch because there's less pipe and there's less connectors because there's no V bracing in this, but there's quite a bit more. You have 4 more holes to dig, and I think for most customers, that's one of the biggest concerns is the labor time in doing this. It's trench time, it's post-hole digging time, and how do you minimize that? You know, everything above ground is pretty easy. And so we are pretty excited. I'll show you later some of the things, some of the other options that are coming with attachment options. So you can move on, go on. So first steps, real briefly, going step by step into how to actually figure out how to install your system. Using the engineering guide, you can get your dimensions on your east to west attachments as well as your front to back attachments. Mark these out on your graded piece of land in the backyard of the house or in a field. Using that same engineering guide, determine what your pipe cut lengths will be. This has a pretty interesting approach to mounting your pipe. So, you know, if anyone's, you know, mounted posts in the ground in the past, you know, it can be kind of difficult to get everything, you know, plumb in all directions. So in this case, basically what the recommendation is to create kind of a scaffolding using like 2x4s and rebar. So drill holes through your horizontal east to west pipe, run rebar through it, and get it at the right height, make it level, and then from there you connect your horizontal tees from Hollander and put them in the ground. And so we haven't poured any concrete yet at this point. So the way that we kind of recommend doing this is to assemble essentially the entire system and then pour concrete, which does help to streamline the process. If you try to set each vertical post individually and get it, you know, plumb level and square, it's pretty tedious. It's kind of hard. So in our recommendation, we show you in our assembly guide how to build somewhat of a scaffolding using rebar and 2x4 to set the front and back horizontal pipe. Once you get those set, you'll want to put on your pipe L connector bracket and attach your vertical posts. And again, you got a post hole dig, or you have, you know, a 2-man or maybe a 1-man auger that'll get it in. Attach your V braces using the Hollander T elbow joints, and then attach the the L bracket assembly kit, which allows you to mount your rails to it. So it's pretty straightforward. It's just time consuming, and it's a lot of labor. It's, you know, paying, you know, your guys to be out digging holes and then pouring concrete and then waiting for it to cure and then coming back the next day and waiting for all the inspections as part of that process is pretty time consuming. So that's pretty standard in the industry, but we do have some options that we'll be coming out with in the future that I think you guys will be excited about as well. If you are using the V braces, it's required you're using that JF3 screw from EJOT. You will just drill a pilot hole at all the elbow joint connections. So in addition to the set screws that come from Hollander that keep the elbows and the T's in place, you'll drill a pilot hole and insert the JF3 screw. And this is because obviously we're relying on these V braces and the diagonal braces quite a bit to hold the structure together. And this is how on the 1.5 inch pipe, we're getting such long spans, upwards of 16 and 17 feet. Move on. So attachment options. So as of today, the most common attachment option we have is post hole digging, you know, bury your pipe in the ground with concrete. But we are in the process of launching some additional options. A lot of customers are looking at the efficiencies of using helical piles, ground screws. A lot of customers, especially in the Southwest, prefer to use ballast. So there are companies that you can order in the upper right-hand corner, basically ballast blocks. They're kind of like, you know, parking lot curbs, just a little bit bigger. And they sometimes can come with pipe connectors already attached. But for most cases, on the bottom right, we have a steel flat roof attachment. And so that can be a set screw or it can be threaded. Most of the pipe companies that you talk to can provide, you know, 20-foot lengths of pipe that are pre-threaded with the couplers already. And so those are kind of nice just in terms of efficiency. So you don't even have to order the Hollander couplers. But that's kind of neat thing about these ground mounts. They can be done. It's a pre-engineered solution, right? So if you compare it to a single, you know, 2-up in portrait steel pile type system, that's going to require some substantial engineering and geotechnical study work. So, you know, being able to buy these components off the shelf from a distributor that it's already pre-engineered is while it might cost a little more, it's going to cost a lot less in engineering time and design time. And there's a lot less risk to this type of ground mount. But with that said, the labor side of digging holes and pouring concrete is pretty substantial. So what we're looking at in the middle of the screen is a coupler where we're working with a couple of suppliers on a 2 and a 3 inch pipe coupler that's threaded. And this would attach either to a 1-2-man auger or just a mechanical auger that's attached to like a bobcat. And this will drive, and instead of having to dig holes, pour concrete, you'll be able to attach the helical piles into the ground very quickly. It'll take you basically, you know, it's a half days of work to get most of the system set up and ready to go. And we're in the process of getting this developed right now. We're working on getting our 3-inch pipe option going, and we'll be adding potentially 5 and 6 rows of modules in landscape going up. It will require a longer rail profile, so it'll probably be more like special order for those other options. But the standard will be a 4-high in landscape, and we could go to a 5-high in landscape. We'll just have to get a special length on the rail.
And Brett, you mentioned, like Brett was mentioning, you know, obviously with ground mount systems, if you guys have been doing this for a while, you understand that there's, you know, obviously more labor involved in pre-assembly and getting a system order, and you'll get familiar with the processes and steps and figure out how to prep to make it as efficient as possible. Like the cast in place picture you see in the top left is a job in San Diego. And I know he has a crew who just goes there to just lay out the system, and they just slam in all, you know, they dig the holes and set the concrete in post, and they have all their measurements, and, you know, the module install guys are going to come much later, if not another day. And then there's the idea of, you have bigger systems, like some of you guys have mentioned here, is sometimes it's maybe in your best interest to bring in a company that does this. And Brett, I know you've worked with companies that strictly do just that. They'll come in, they know the measurements, They know what they need to do to drill in systems. And this is, usually with bigger installs where they can come in with the equipment. You don't have to rent it. You don't have to buy it. You pay the service for them to come in and do that job of drilling holes or setting screws. And it's kind of like with roofing, when you get into these bigger systems, sometimes it's better to call in a roofer to just put in all the attachments and do all the waterproofing. In this case, it's do, the drilling or tapping or ballast or whatever that you got to do. So I just wanted to make that point that, you'll figure out when it's time to call in the company who can do it, and maybe you can get some quotes. And Brad, I know maybe a few companies that do that and offer that. So if anyone's interested in those types of companies, we can kind of refer a few, I think.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, Johan. If you're a contractor that has primarily been doing rooftop and that's what your crew knows and that's the equipment that you have, trying to execute on a ground mount might be a little intimidating. It's best to have the right equipment to get back there to do your trenching, to dig the holes. Your biggest risk and exposure is really on the labor side, on how long this could take if you guys don't know what to do and you run into issues. I mean, obviously, the reason for some of these different attachment options is because it's hard to know what's going on below grade. And especially in the Southwest, you can be on some sites where it's your helical piles or post hole digging goes like butter, and then you'll be on other sites where there are boulders literally right below where you're at, and at that point you may have to reevaluate what you're going to do, right? And so that's one of the advantages of a ground screw, is that it's basically kind of like screwing something into a wall. You do a pilot hole, they basically bore out a pilot hole and then they just drill that screw in, and so no matter what is going on below grade, generally they can get it in. Helical piles, not so much. You can generally get them in most cases. They'll get through some small rock, but if you hit like a real big boulder or something large, you pretty much have to back out and probably just pour concrete the best you can in that spot. But to Johan's point, yes, there are companies out there, and we can refer them to you as well, where they come in at a fixed cost per watt. They have all the equipment. They know exactly what they're doing. They can provide just the pipe. They can provide everything. They can provide all the racking, provide the clamps, and they can leave the site done, just ready for your crew to come on just like you normally would, and just assemble modules and wire it up with inverters and interconnect to the house. So if you haven't done a lot of ground mounts, or you're kind of like sick of doing ground mounts and you wish there was a better way, that's a very viable option. And it's a fixed cost per watt. You just build it into your cost structure, and it probably will alleviate a lot of the headaches. But if you already have invested in a lot of the equipment, you might as well do it yourself as well, right? So we have multiple options. If that's something you guys are interested in, just reach out to us and we can connect you with those.
Yeah, and some of these companies probably even know, I mean, the ones we've worked with obviously know Everest, and they know the dimensions and sets and requirements, and these guys will understand the soil types and understand building department regulations and all that stuff. So, and if they don't understand the product, but you want to use this product, we're happy to get involved and help out and give them the information they need.
That's also right.
And again,
when it comes to like engineering, when it comes to engineering help, if you've reached out to your AHJ and they're having lots of questions, we're happy to get on the phone and talk directly with the local jurisdiction. So if they're having questions about our engineering report and some of the assumptions and some of the calculations we've done, our tech support team is available. We can talk to the AHJ. We kind of like talking to the AHJs to get a sense of what their requirements are anyway.
Yeah, we're getting to know them much more. Some of them are, really helpful, and some of them don't understand and might need some more explanation. And definitely an art to talking to a building inspector. And some of them totally understand the systems, and some of them, don't. So we're happy to get involved if it helps you guys try the system out. So if you have more questions, definitely type it in. Looks like we've answered most questions that were not big ones and most small ones, and we've typed them in. But I don't see many technical questions, which either people are multitasking right now, maybe you got screen fatigue, or maybe Brett just did such a good job that he explained everything. So again, if you guys have questions, definitely go to our website, and we are posting a lot more training information and technical information. As Brett mentioned, excuse me, we have some updates on this product specifically. In fact, it's kind of funny that we scheduled this webinar a long time ago, and these updates started to come in, and it's pretty exciting. And obviously we can't say exactly everything. I mean, we got the 3-inch pipe that we're looking at if that's something you want to do, and then we have new components, but we're doing a lot more engineering stuff that's coming into play. It's a pretty capable system as is, but we are beefing up a lot of our product development, and we want to talk to you guys who have used the product and have some feedback. We're constantly talking to installers who use the product, and we're making changes, and that's what you're seeing in some of those new product changes that have happened with, you know, the single tool and the Crossrail 44X that's coming in. So these are all things that have been in demand from installers, and little products like wire management and the ground lug just makes your job easier. So if you haven't used Everest before, definitely get a sample kit. Some of those are limited right now because it's hard to get in there and ship them and build them because we do have some strict regulations. We are operating, but there's not as much staff in the office. We're trying to limit that exposure. So, but get in touch with us. There's our office line there and our general email. And if you want a rep in your area, we can provide that as well. If you're wanting NABCEP credit for this, it is by request. So let us know if you want that, and we'll send that out. It has to be done one by one with your name and everything. I do see some questions coming in now. So one is, how is the galvanic effect between different types of metal managed or controlled? That's a great question. I don't know, Brett, if you've dealt with that or, yeah.
Actually, I might defer to Tyler on this one if Tyler's still on.
Yes.
Well, some of these posts.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
it's Tyler here. Yeah, so I mean, that's a good question. I mean, kind of like with any solar array, where it's going in, it's site specific. It's really something that you should probably at least be thinking about. You know, would I advise putting any solar array like on the end of a pier, like an ocean pier? Like, you know, you might be able to do that, but that system definitely is not going to last as long as, say, if it was more inland, just because of things like salt spray and things like that. So the materials we use are what I would say are, you know, specific to like industry specific and industry recommended materials. You know, we have stainless steel hardware. These Hollander pipes are exactly what, you know, you would see on a traditional residential system. So does that mean that it's going to work in every single application? I can't make that guarantee. I don't think anyone could, or any manufacturer could. You really have to be thinking about the sites that this system is going into to see if galvanic corrosion actually is a serious problem or not. I can say in all of the years we've been working in the United States, I've never heard of an issue of galvanic corrosion with one of these ground mount systems, or any of our systems for that matter. But with that said, it's always good to take into account the site-specific conditions, because we can't account for everything. You know, your job as the installer and the designer is to take those things into consideration. And if you have to, consult a corrosion engineer or corrosion firm, and they may have some options to mitigate that. I know there are some firms out there who work specifically with utility scale ground mount and residential ground mount, doing things like soil sampling to ensure that galvanic corrosion is not going to be a problem with the system. So you can consult those firms if you need to, if you believe that the site specific conditions call for that.
And there's also, I mean, if you Google like dissimilar metal chart, you'll get like a basic chart of dissimilar metals and what the effect is between, you know, galvanized or stainless steel and aluminum. Aluminum and stainless steel play pretty nice together for the most part. But like Tyler said, if you're closer to the ocean, I'm near the coast in California, so is Tyler out in San Diego, and most guys are using anodized product, and we do have our dark rail, which is anodized, and sometimes that can add some more protection. Some people use like a butyl pad that ensures the separation between those connections. It's not required. It's probably a little overboard in most cases, but like Tyler said, you can look up dissimilar metals, and then based on the area, the region you're in, you'll figure out pretty quickly whether you need to take those extra measures. There's also things like sprays and whatnot, but sometimes it's overkill. You'd be surprised how well just the common aluminum that we use holds up. And what is it? Is our aluminum? I forget the number. I think it's like 1550. I think maybe.
It's
I forget which.
6,000 series aluminum. Yeah, 6,000 series.
6,000 series. Right,
Yeah.
and which that's most common in small boats that are in the ocean. So as far as salt spray, you'd be surprised that just standard aluminum does hold up pretty well. But again, you can do the dark anodized if you want to increase that protection in a salt spray area. All right, thanks, Tyler. That was definitely helpful. I don't see any other questions, and we're at the hour. So yeah, no more questions are coming up. So I guess we'll end it there. Again, if you guys have more questions later, feel free to reach out to us. If you're not familiar with our products and want to try it, we can guide you through that. So be sure to get in touch with us, and our sales reps, inside sales reps, can help you get the information. And if you want the NABCEP credit, you can email either the info @ or marketing @ down there, everest-solarsystems.com. And we look forward to hearing from you guys. And please do check our website. We're going to do a lot more of these webinars and videos and tips and tricks. So thanks for joining us, and have a great day. Stay safe out there.